Machine. I'm Dave, KD7CYM. The Western Washington Amateur Television Society is a group of amateur radio enthusiasts that take to the airways with fast scan television. We have a repeater located on Cougar Mountain. We transmit on 70 centimeters. It's a cross-band repeater. It spits out images at 1.2 gigahertz. To find out more about the Western Washington Amateur Television Society, text WW7ATS, text WW7ATS. That will take you to our homepage where you'll find our frequencies that we transmit on and a little bit of information about the club. Also, there's a link on that page. It'll take you to YouTube where we stream our nets that are held on Wednesdays and Saturdays between 8 and 9 o'clock. Also, we'd like to thank the SeaTac Repeater Association for letting us use WW7STR's repeater, known as the 08 machine, 147.08, with a tone of 103.5 for our voice transmissions during our nets. So I'll pause now in case anybody has emergency traffic or needs to make a contact with somebody on the 08 machine before our net gets fully underway. This is Dave, KD7CYM. Hearing none, again, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I'm Dave, KD7CYM. Checked in so far this evening is Ron, KD7QKU, Bert, N7CS, Jim, N7QO, Richard, K7ITX, Jim, N7QO, and myself, Dave, KD7CYM. Is there anybody else who would like to check in?
Dave, WW7ATS, James in Northeast Bellevue.
The net acknowledges James, WU7N. Welcome to the net. So with that, we'll get the net underway one more time. Is there anybody else who would like to check in? Oh, I see Jessica has joined us, KF7UHK. Okay, with that, let's start off the net. We'll start with Ron, KD7QKU in Tacoma.
Okay, well, thank you, KD7ZYM in the group. This is Ron, KD7QKU. Well, let's see. Nice and cool. I have done a few things. Last night I called Armando, and he's the guy that works on my sprinklers. I had a water. He came over and fixed that, and then he readjusted, changed the head, the little thing inside the sprinklers to, they'll either go out like 6 feet, 12 feet, or 15 feet. And in a couple of places I just wasn't quite getting enough water. The lawn was trying to die. So he changed all that, and he thinks now it has really good coverage. So then when he got done, I said, I have one more thing I'd like you to do. I'd like you to dig me a hole in the backyard. So I went around by my antenna mask, and I said, I got the postal digger, and I said, and a wheelbarrow, and I said, I'd like to have a hole right there. I need it about 3 feet deep so I can put a sack of cement in and a bracket. So he said, no problem. It'd take me, I don't know, 15 minutes probably. He had me a hole. And then we had the dirt in the wheelbarrow, and he said, what are you going to do with the dirt? And I said, gee, Merry Christmas, I don't know what I'm going to do with dirt. I guess I have to put it a little at a time in the garbage can. He said, well, I'll take it. So he wheeled the wheelbarrow around to his pickup, and he has some empty sacks that you put sand in, for building dikes, And so he filled them up and tied them, and he said, I'll just take them to work and dump them. So that was nice. I didn't get stuck with more rocks and more dirt. So anyway, I have a hole now. So back to net, KD7QKU.
WW7UHK.
I always have something I can do with that dirt, stick it somewhere. So, and rocks, I would sift it out and use the rock somewhere and dirt somewhere else. So, yeah, stick in the garbage? I don't think so. Flush it down toilet? Maybe not. Let's see. I drove the 300 route today all day from 8 o'clock this morning till 5, almost 6 o'clock this evening. And it's a roundy route. Takes about 50 minutes to complete one complete turnaround. It goes through Burlington and it goes through Cedar Woolley. And tired. Oh, I'm really tired today, so I can't wait to go make some dinner. And then tomorrow I'm on call, but I was on call number 2, but now I'm down to on call number 1. They said, oh, by the way, Jessica, you're on call 1. And I said, does that mean I should go disconnect my telephone? And they said, no, don't do that. So I'll probably be working again tomorrow, and this will be, I think, day 6 out of 7 days in a week that I'll have work because I gave up one of my days off this last week to work because they begged and pleaded because they needed someone extra to drive. So such is life and working. People say, what do you think about driving? I say, well, it has its back and forth. With that, KM7UHK.
UHK, thanks for joining. Let's go to Bert in Marysville, N7CS.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I'm trying out a new webcam I got today, so I'm using the new webcam instead of my laptop camera, so hopefully those watching hopefully it looks better than before. I'm not using a light, and the lighting seems to be a lot better than my old one. I bought an extra light, but when I turn it on, I think it gets too bright now, so I probably wasted money on that. Or maybe I can use it at nighttime if I turn the lights off or something. Let's see what else is going on. The Snohomish County Hams Club had a meeting today, and the guest speaker gave a presentation about the history of amateur radio call signs. And it was a pretty interesting presentation. One thing in particular was, I guess, before World War I, amateur radio wasn't really regulated, and people just kind of made up their own call signs. And it became a problem because I don't think they were even regulated on what frequencies they could use. It's like whatever they could get their gear to talk on. So there was a big problem where amateurs would send commands out to Navy vessels and have them go to missions that they weren't supposed to be doing. So when World War I started, the government in the U.S. basically said amateur radio is gone, and they canceled basically anyone that did have a license. Not suspend, not put on hold. They actually canceled everybody's license, so that when World War I was over, everyone had to go retake the test again and everything, and register new call signs. Well, I guess register official call signs and things like that. But yeah, it was pretty interesting. I mean, that was just the first part of it. But anyway, this is good for now. This is Bert Marshall in 7CS. Back to that.
7CS, let's go to Richard, K7ITX in Olympia.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, big car race event for my team today in Shelton at the Ridge. This was an event with our Porsche 944, along with, we have another friend that has one that is, his paddock is set up right next to us. And anyway, there's 3 of us. The other one guy has some kind of a fancy Toyota, but these are not the vintage races, and so they tend to bump each other a little bit more. But I'll just make a long story short. All 3 of us, we went 1, 2, 3. So now Josh, our driver, couldn't get first because our buddy next to him with a much bigger and heavier and more powerful 944, he did what he's supposed to do. For 30 minutes, he didn't break, and he kept it way out in front of everybody. And in fact, he had to negotiate lap traffic. It was a long race, but it was really nice to see our whole group sweep the race. So we're back at it again tomorrow, and so I'm here enjoying this beautiful motif of, I don't know, I think this might be Hurricane Ridge, and then I think maybe Mount Olympus over there. So what do you say? K7ITX, back to that control.
K7ITX, thanks for that. And get an ID in here. Again, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I'm Dave, KD7CYM. So with that out of the way, let's go to Jim, N7QO.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, everyone. Well, Ron, Armando, go dig a hole. That kind of reminds me, I was looking at installing a tower over here, and I was talking to someone about digging a hole in the backyard here, and they asked me how big I wanted it. I said a cube, 9 feet by 9 feet and 9 feet deep, and they actually wanted to get paid for doing that. It's really difficult to dig on my property, though. We have a lot of rocks underground. It's almost like a quarry over here. But right around that time, there was a rumor going on that my company might file bankruptcy. So I delayed doing the tower, and it turns out it's a good thing I did delay because my company did file bankruptcy. So I still don't have a tower, but oh well. Let's see, Jessica, I got one thing to say. Busy. Funny how sometimes what may be a part-time job turns into like a, holy cow, I didn't want to work that much. But hang in there. Tell them you're working too much if you think you need to. And let's see. Bert, the new camera looks good without the light. Definitely a light-sensitive camera that you have there. And boy, that's quite a story with canceling everyone's amateur radio license. That's a terrible response when essentially one person could screw up, and so just go ahead and punish 10,000. That's I don't know. Oh well. And Dick, Porsche 944s. Sounds like you had a good time. Back to you, Dave, and 7QO.
N7QO, let's go to James, WU7N.
Good evening, everyone. WU7N in Northeast Bellevue. Well, Ron, what to do with dirt? You need to watch that movie, The Great Escape, and get some pants and sew them up properly, and then you can take care of extra dirt. So anyway, Jessica, you know the saying goes, when you do more than people expect, people will just expect more of you. Yeah, I was on call once for a while, and it just made great money for me at the time, so I lived with it. But I was a normal, 8 to 5 worker, and I knew that there was this one particular person on 5 days a week, and there were Star Trek reruns from 10 to 11 p.m. He would call at 11 p.m. sharp when he got to work, and would ask for help 5 days a week. It was just incredible money. And I talked with my boss about this. I mean, what do you want me to do with this? He just said, carry on. Hinted at once that I should just go in, since I was relatively relatively close and didn't have to drive, 4 hours to get to work or something, then I should do it for free. And I just stared at him for a moment, and then he just quickly said, but then again, you could just keep turning in your time. And I said, good, we agree. So anyway, holes with lots of rocks. Jim, I have one word for you, low explosives. Well, that's 2 words, isn't it? Well, anyway, it's one bang. So that's how you work around rocks in your area. I wish I'd known about this lecture. I would have loved to listen to it. I think the history of ham radio is just fascinating. I had not heard the one that people were sending off orders to Navy ships. You could never hack that system today and do that. Let's see, the big event Monday, Artemis, sister of Apollo, takes to the heavens. Deepest aircraft designed for manned flight has ever gone into space. So I hope that goes well. I will be watching. That should be a really good launch. And, part of it's with used leftover space shuttle parts. So I think that's really making best use of resources there. So anyway, with that, I'll turn it back to Net Control Dave. So this is WW7N.
WW7N, this is Dave, KD7CYM in Lake City. 64 degrees outside, and oh, what a relief it was the last couple of days with cooler weather. I was able to get outside, do some yard work, and today finally got my legs moving around and went for a nice walk in the neighborhood. Must have gone a couple of miles. Didn't realize how bad my legs were from not getting out and walking for 4 or 5 days anyway. Well, I'd say a couple of weeks, actually, with the hot weather we had. So I was kind of inbound at home with that. Well, I was talking with Ron earlier this evening about forest fires, and I think one of the things I remember about forest fires is when I first came to Como, I ended up covering a forest fire over by Chelan, and the interesting thing was this guy showed up with a Jeep and escorted us in through the burn area. Wow, this is exciting. So got in the Jeep and taking pictures as we were going through the burn area. Trees were exploding left and right just from the buildup of sap, I guess, that comes down into the bottom of the tree while it's burning. And oh man, we spent about 45 minutes in there. I couldn't wait to get out. And then the driver said, oh, why don't you open that chest in the back of the car? He had an ice chest full of beer. I've never felt such a relief of drinking beer. That was the highlight of the shoot, I would say, being able to have some liquid refreshments that was ice cold. So that's about what I've got to say. This is Dave, KD7CYM at Lake City. So let's go back up to Ron, KD7QKU.
Okay, KD7QKU here again. Well, I don't know, Dave. I've never been in big trees that were on fire. I've just been in the, brush and wheat field fires and sagebrush and stuff. I don't think I'd like big trees. Anyway, so let's see. Yeah, Bert, that sounded like a pretty interesting meeting. I'm sure there's more to this story, so we'll be looking forward to the rest of it. Talking to submarines, when I had my HF station up, there must have been some Asian fishermen someplace, and I could hear them talking, so I decided to talk to them. They were talking back and forth between ships, and they definitely could hear me because they stopped talking, and then there was a long silence, and then there was a, oh, and then I said, oh, again, this is, from USA, America, and there's big silence, and then there was, so I think they could hear me, but they must have been off frequency. They were over on our ham band, so I don't know what they were doing, but where they were at. So anyway, it was different. So I guess to continue, oh, and Jessica, yeah, so when you get tired, you're just going to have to refuse. And then they'll put you back down to number 3 or 4 or whatever, put somebody else up at 1. But yeah, I'm like, who was it, James said, the more you do, the more they want you to do. cars out of the garage and got my material. I had all the material to make this little bracket to put in the cement in the hole in the ground so I can tip my antenna over. So I bolted and welded that all together, so it's all ready to go now. I didn't go down and buy a bag of cement, but I probably will Monday. And then next cool day I'll mix it up and pour it in there and move my antenna. It's just right beside my pipe, so it'll be an easy move into it, so it should work fine. So that's what I did today. It's amazing how I'm not used to doing things and crawling around on the concrete on my hands and knees and getting up and down. How tired I got. And I can't see anymore, so it's hard to weld. But I welded it, but I just don't see like I used to. Alright, back to that KD7QKU.
QKU, thanks for that. Let's go on to Jessica, KF7UHK.
I mentioned I love the Great Escape reference and moving around dirt. I love that movie, and it gives you claustrophobia. That whole thing about making the tunnel just gave me claustrophobia, or at least it brought it out. Retention bonus. We all just got retention bonuses at this Skagit transit station, and it was like a paycheck and a half worth of money, and so it was really nice. It really boosts up your checking account very nicely. The money seems to be very good, and they seem to want me there. And whenever I say, I could go somewhere else with this CDL license, they go, no, you're not. You can't leave. And mostly it's because they're all waiting for time to have vacation and time off and stuff like that. But they're just sort of people, so they want me there so they can take some time off. I can see it. I was once looking up NATO ITU phonetic alphabets, and there was one I found once that it sounded like they were using it back in wartime, where it was just a jumble of things. It's not your Alpha Bravo Charlie kind of thing. It was like applesauce, baker, and some other words, so that if you weren't following along, it was harder to put together. I'd have to go look it up, and it usually had some British chap saying these things. It just sounds just jumble words. And if you follow along, if you have the code, if you do the code, you can follow along. So, but it wasn't your standard ITU. I'll have to look it up. It was just hilarious. Okay, I've got to go deliver a couple of parking stickers, and I'll be back. And so next time you see me, I'll be back after I deliver some parking stickers on one of the other jobs I do. KF7UHK.
KF7UHK. Let's go to Bert, N7CS.
Well, let's see. So yeah, a little bit more to the story. So I mentioned how when World War I started, the government canceled all the amateur radio licenses. Well, what they also did was they required that you destroy your amateur radio station. It had to be disassembled and the parts basically destroyed. Any antennas that were up had to be taken down. If you didn't, you'd be charged with treason and potentially subject to whatever up to death if you didn't do it. This is apparently back in World War I. They also asked all the Boy Scouts of America to scout the neighborhoods looking for antennas and report them into the police. So it sounds crazy, but apparently this is recorded in QSQ magazine at the time and things like that. Also, another interesting thing from the talk. So way back when, this is around the time of the Titanic sinking, there were a lot of the commercial gear was made by either Marconi or other companies in other countries, different companies in Germany. And on the Titanic, for instance, they had a Marconi device or Marconi radio, and it wasn't staffed by people of the cruise line. It was staffed by Marconi engineers directly. They were the only people allowed to operate the equipment. And if you recall in the Titanic movie, hold on, I'm going to drop for a second. Connected. they weren't allowed to communicate with other radio equipment unless it was made by Marconi. So a lot of the Titanic distress calls were ignored by other radio operators because they weren't allowed to monitor different kinds of equipment. And plus, they didn't know what CQD meant because the Titanic was calling. So that actually led to a lot of delays in getting people out to the Titanic to help rescue. And at that point, after that, the aftermath was the government made it so that if you had to monitor these radio frequencies for distress signals, and if you heard a distress signal, you were required to go render assistance. You could not ignore it, even if your company said you would get fired if you didn't do it. So real crazy stuff back then. But let's see. Dave, the jacket you're wearing with that red collar and the blue shirt. If you just had a red cape on, you could cosplay for Doctor Strange. So that's yeah. But anyway, that's enough for now. This is Bert and Maryville, N7CS back to that.
7CS, thanks for that. Let's go on to Richard, K7ITX.
Well, thank you very much, Bert, for the history of amateur radio and the time during World War I. I think I saw a little bit of that history when I was at the Kite Museum, because evidently they use kites for not necessarily. I wouldn't want to say amateur radio necessarily, but during that time, during World War I and maybe even World War II, but for sure one or both, I don't know. But they, put these kites up in the air from the lifeboat. The transmitter would be in the lifeboat. They jump in the lifeboat because the boat got hit by a submarine or something like that. And these kites would fly up. They're pretty decent kites, and then they, with the transmitter, the people in the boat wouldn't have to do anything. It automatically would send out the SOS distress signal. So anyway, so thanks again, Bert. And then, and God, I missed all the other great stories. I wanted to know more about Ron's cat. I was going to call him on the landline, but I just figured I'd get all sad and weepy because, I really love pets, and I'm kind of worried about Ron's cat. It's just life. But probably the most interesting thing today was to get a text from my buddy in the Bay Area who I grew up with. He's an umpire, and so they were having an umpire barbecue, and he's talking to one of his umpire friends, and who started talking about how proud he is of his son, who is a baseball player, and turns out he's in the major leagues. And my buddy asked his friend, the friendly umpire, what's your son's name? Maybe I might have heard of him before. Well, he goes, yeah, maybe. His name is Mitch Haniger. And I went, he went, whoa. So, of course, Mitch Haniger is probably right now the most popular baseball player on the Seattle Mariners team. So it set him back a little bit. And the text, I didn't read the whole text. It's just a storybook. I've never seen so much texting from one person all at once. So the guy was always kind of a real smart person. So, but anyway, I thought that was pretty nice that he shared that with me today. So, anyway, maybe I'll be able to, that was just a phone call organizing stuff for tomorrow morning. You know how that goes with working with a lot of other people. They don't know anything about what's going on with my little business with amateur radio. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to them, I'm sure. With that, K7ZYM, K7ITS, back to net control.
K7ITX, thanks, Richard. This is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society net on the 08 machine. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. So let's go to Jim, N7QO.
Thank you, Dave. Well, Dave, rescue supplies, cold beer, who would have thought? Yeah, I would be terrified out there as well, with trees blowing up around you. Holy cow. Didn't sign up for that. Bert, CQ distress, yeah. I remember reading something about that years ago. I had no idea there was that much competition or clandestine activity, as you will, regarding amateur radio, and but that probably more involved commercial radio on the ships. At any rate, I agree, real crazy stuff. And Ron, I would like to echo Dick. When you can, give us an update on your cat's pancreatitis. I don't remember if you had a vet appointment or what, but I know we're all kind of curious about that. And thanks for mentioning the Artemis blasting off too. I'm going to try to catch that one day and see if it's on television anywhere. Keep my fingers crossed on that. But if it's not, I'm sure they'll show it after the fact. So anyway, KD7ZYM and 7QO.
In 7QO, let's go to James, WU7N.
Well, thank you, Dave. Well, one thing it's very obvious probably, but in the very earliest days of radio, there was only one frequency. It was the SparkGap frequency. There was no other frequency. And so everybody that used SparkGap transmitters and receivers just had to be polite with everybody else if you were within range and, work with each other and such. But the opposite was also true, because I'd read in one historical note, the first case ever of electronic warfare was believed to be at an America's Cup. There were two competing newspapers, both having SparkGap transmitters. And so one person, and this is almost like, well, what about next time? Because they sent who won, and then they threw their key down. So no one else could send who won. They had to do it by courier like you always had to do before. But that meant that paper could get their extra edition out just a little earlier than everybody else's. And once the extra had gone out, then it was more difficult to sell any other extra editions because they were printed a little bit later. It was late news. So I thought that was kind of interesting. First, that that's what happened. And secondly, can you imagine? I wouldn't want to be that operator, right? Because there's always a next time. But that's an interesting study in human behavior. Maybe he thought he was going to retire soon. Wait, let's see. I had not heard I got in a little late on the net, so anything that was said, Ron, I hope your chat does well. I had not heard that, and I hope the antenna project also goes well. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to net control. This is James, WU7N in Northeast Bellevue. Take it away, Dave.
Thanks for that, James. This is Dave, KD7ZYM. I was thinking some other forest fire things. I remember covering a fire. We had this new electronic camera video. Wow. Big, expensive stuff. You had to have a person that carried a big deck with you, and then the camera was independent. You didn't record the video in the camera. It was recorded alongside with an assistant, and we backpacked up into this forest area in Snoqualmie area, and we thought we had a pretty good site to get some pictures. there was nothing burning around us. Then all of a sudden, this twin came down really low and just passed over the head of us. We thought, wow, that was kind of unusual. Then followed by that was a big 4-engine plane carrying retardant. Guess what the drop zone was? Me. I looked like a red tomato after it hit, and all of the gear, oh, what a mess it was to clean up. I remember going back to the station. They said, you did what? And I said, well, I didn't plan this. They went through and cleaned up the camera gear. The recorder didn't, it was covered in a big satchel, so it was safe. And there was a covering on the camera canvas, so that wasn't so bad, but they had to clean up the lens area. But things that happen when you're covering news. More horror stories probably a little later. So this is Dave, KD7ZYM in Lake City. Let's KD7QKU.
Ron again, KD7QKU. Well, the cat was in the hospital for about 4 days, and she came home, and she's been doing just fine. You'd think nothing ever happened to her, except she has shaved front legs where they cut the hair off so they can get at her veins, I guess, to put in. She was on I can't say what I want to say, but they put fluid in her anyway. And then a lot of other stuff. But yeah, no, she, I guess is kind of recovering from the pancreatitis. She has kind of an irritable bowel thing too, so they have her on steroids. And right now, we've been giving her appetite enhancer. Oh my goodness sakes, does that stuff work? She just wants to eat constantly. And my wife wants to feed her constantly. She's as big around as a watermelon, I told you, and you gotta stop feeding her. You gotta feed her to death. But yeah, we gave her the last appetite enhancer tonight, so hopefully that's over now. She'll maybe slow down. But yeah, no, she looks perfectly fine right now until the next pancreatitis attack. And I don't know how that'll come out, but hopefully, maybe she'll never have one again. It's all tied in with her intestine. The intestine kind of triggers the pancreatitis or something. So we get the intestine under control with steroids. They're hoping that she won't have the attacks, the pancreatitis. So, and let's see, I was going. Oh, when I was in the fire department, we would put detergent, laundry detergent, in our water because it breaks the surface tension when you spray the water on stuff, and it clings better. So we put this laundry detergent in our tanks. It didn't exactly foam up, but it wasn't exactly laundry detergent, but I forget what it was called. But it didn't foam up anyway. We didn't have trouble with foam, but it would clean the wood or grass or stuff a lot better than just plain water. So what else can I talk about? I told you I got the bracket all welded together, and I'm ready just to mix up some concrete, put it in the ground. Then I can tip the antenna over. So I was thinking, when I heard those fishing boats, they must have been on 10 meters, because I think that's about the only thing I talk on was 10 meters, so they had to be on 10 meters. So anyway, that was kind of an unusual situation. Darn. I didn't make much notes. I did write down to tell you about the cat. But that's about it, I guess. So back to net, KD7QKU.
QKU. Well, let's see. Jessica's smiling face is there. KF7UHK. Let's go to her.
On my HF radio, usually somewhere probably in the what would be known as the I'm not sure what band it was, something very low. I hear these fire and brimstone preachers on the radio that were recorded programming, and I always I always found that a little bit interesting. Shortwave as well. Well, shortwave. I think shortwave is well. I say like listening to shortwave. I always found that interesting. Listening to spark gap transmitters. Titanic didn't do too well with that. With all the transmissions and stuff that went back and forth. 9th grade, we had one of the first VTRs, I think, in the city, a videotape recorder, and you had the big half-inch tape, and a crazy winding for it, and we treated it like it was gold, and it was only black and white. Very nice system, but it was not at all portable. And if I was going to sign off with the Royal Navy ITU phonetic alphabet, I'd be something like King Freddy 7, Uncle Harry King. Back to you.
Let's move on to Bert, N7CS, our historian tonight.
Okay, you were talking about the Artemis launch a few people were coming on Monday. Just FYI, about 20 seconds ago, a SpaceX rocket just launched. I've got that running in another window now. So I think it's just launching Starlink, some more Starlink satellites. But okay, what else we got? Oh yeah, for the Artemis launch. So it is Monday, but it's very early Monday our time. I think it's from 5:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. is the launch window. So you may want to set your clocks if you want to not miss that. And let's see, what else do we have here? In my notes, so Jessica, a good thing they paid you that retention bonus, because I did see in Lake Stevens they had 30 openings for school bus drivers, but I don't know, probably less hours, but then you have to deal with the kids, so I'm not sure how, there's pros and cons, I guess. Okay, and, this was kind of a cool thing. So I came across this website today where you can look at old yearbooks from high school and stuff. And I don't know, they don't have all of them, but they do have some years here and there. So it was kind of cool. I think in my high school, I found one, not in my year, but it was close enough that they had some pictures in there of stuff. So that was kind of a neat trip down memory lane. And I guess that is about it for now. So this is Bert and Rachel in 7CS. Back to that.
7CS, let's go on to Richard, K7ITX.
Alright, well, that's great news, Ron. Except it's kind of like deja vu. It's like you have this issue with, is her name Lily? Is the cat's name Lily? Ron? Can you hear me okay? Either nod up or down or shake your head yes, or no, go yes or no. Oh, it's yes. Oh, okay, so good. Alright, so anyway, Lily, what can I say? I'm just very pleased. But like I was saying, you're right. Lily has these episodes, and it seems like she's had, since I've known you, you've gone through this 5 or 6 times or more. Now, I don't recall her losing her appetite like as this bad, but it's never good when you have to take her to the hospital, so to speak. I mean, they don't understand it. But anyway, so probably, that's about all I can comment on, other than, I'm kind of excited about the space launch. And I kind of doubt I'll be able to see it if it's at 5:30. Now, if it's at 7:30, I'll be up for that. So, all right. So I think I'll just pass her right along. KD70IM, K7ITX, back in that control.
7QO.
Thank you, Dave. Ron, thanks for the update. And what happened there, we didn't initially hear you, Ron, because apparently there was a delay in Dick's system disconnecting from the Echo Link or something. There was just a slight delay, so that's what was happening there. Let's see, one comment. Jim, that was a good laugh. You gave us, thank you for the superb illustration regarding the appetite enhancement for Lily. I just had to laugh at that, and I think that was precious. Thanks for that. And let's see, 5:30, I'll have to see if it's on the schedule somewhere on the cable television, and I think I'll record that. Thanks for mentioning that. Although it's not terribly uncommon for me to be up by 5:30, but I might not be. So anyway, it's strange. It's like I don't need to set an alarm anymore. They say that as you get older, you go to bed earlier and you wake up earlier. Well, for me, I don't go to bed any earlier, but I do wake up earlier for some strange reason. But then it's like I have to take a nap sometime during the middle of the day. I don't know. It works for me. I don't really like it, but that's the way it's working right now anyway. Back to you, Dave, and 7QO.
In 7QO, let's go to WU7N, James.
Thank you, Dave. WU7N here. Well, I do recall a moment where I was in a conference room and we were doing telecom support for an upcoming launch, and someone said, kind of young and new to the aerospace industry, well, if they wouldn't launch in the middle of the night, more people could watch it. And I didn't quite know how to respond, and I guess no one else did either because it was just dead quiet in the room. But anyway, well, so I don't know if I'll get up to watch it or not. The Earth should just turn differently if they want people to watch it. That's what I say. But anyway, I've got new information. It might be old information to everybody else, but this is news you can use. So I haven't been into a Safeway in quite some time. It's not that I have anything against the stores. There's just not one really convenient around me. So I was in Issaquah, and I go into the Safeway, and I noticed that donuts were 99 cents, kind of a loss leader, which is just cheap. Anything else to have for lunch, minimum price was $7.50 to $8 to walk out with just some kind of munchie for lunch. Well, I hopped into the bathroom, and the light in the ceiling was this intense blue that would make, the Russian Secret Service just proud for, the holding room for, the pre-interrogation warm-up. It just hurts your eyes. It was just really an unpleasant, intense blue color. So I didn't, wash my hands and got out, and there was a Safeway employee walking by, and I go, what is up with the light in the room in there? And he goes, oh yeah, there's a reason for that. Oh, do tell, what is it? And I was thinking, since it was this intense blue, that this might be some kind of sterilizing light for all the germs, and I was kind of wondering what this did to the back of my retinas and the rest of my skin. But actually, he goes, no, we have a junkie problem. And supposedly the intensive blue light is supposed to make it difficult to find the veins in your arm. Now, I don't know if it makes it difficult to find the veins in your arm, but any normal person is not going to want to open your eyes in a room, which I guess would make it difficult to find the veins in your arm. I did, to quell any rumors, I did open my eyes at the critical moment, but I would think that they'd have more of a cleanup problem with people going in there with their eyes closed. That's my opinion, but I don't know, maybe not. So anyway, that's the news you could use is 99 cents donuts at Safeway.
way, but, go before you visit. Anyway, this is James, WW7ATS. Looks like we got 9 minutes left. Take it away, Dave.
WW7. This is Dave, KD7ZYM, and it's ID time again. This is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society net on the 08 machine. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. Well, I was listening to James talking about his getting information out from the sailboat race. Well, it reminded me some stories, early days of movie news. Before television news, you had Pathé News, and then you had Movie Town News. In Seattle, there was a couple of photographers that were based here that took care of feeds from this area to those organizations. One guy was named Paris Emery, and so one day we were talking about the early days in the 60s and the 70s of what was going on, and he was saying, oh, well, we kind of fudged a little bit. A lot of times, if there was flooding going on, he'd go find a farmer and pay him $1 for a chicken, then take the chicken and put it on a log and then shove it out into the water, and then take a picture of the chicken floating down the stream. So that was one thing. And another thing was, once he went to it was Labor Day weekend, and they needed some footage of the Ellensburg rodeo. So a week before the rodeo, he rounded up 4 or 5 cowboys and staged the rodeo, and then beat everybody in the motion picture houses where they were projecting that video, and he got that on the air. So that was kind of interesting. But the worst story I ever heard from him was there was a twin-engine plane went down at Boeing Field, and I guess there was all kinds of fuel all around the end of the runway where this thing crashed. Well, this was a nighttime thing, and he showed up with these aerial flares, and he's firing those things off into the sky so he can take pictures of the wreck. And apparently, it drove the fire department crazy because these flares were coming down on parachutes and all of this area that was just contaminated with gasoline. But so much for the information that happens in the early days of, I would say, movie house news, not television news. I can't say for real that things have changed a little bit in television news. Things happen. This is Dave, KD7ZYM in Lake City, so I'm going to move it back up to Ron, KD7QKU.
KD7QKU. Well, I often wonder if some of those pictures they shoot on the news isn't kind of staged, but I suppose the tendency to do that is always there. Well, the other night, Lee was having a net, I guess it was last night. Comes on at 7 o'clock, it's in Port Angeles, and it's on 146.760 with a tone of 100. And someone was saying they put in a new repeater, not a new call sign or anything, but it's a new repeater. The old repeater was old, and they replaced it with a newer one. And they wanted to see how much coverage it had. So I thought I would try to check in. So I had texted Lee telling him I was going to try to check in. And so he had a call list. So when he first, I could chunk the repeater and I could get a response. And when he first started, he was real strong. I could hear him quite well. A little bit of white noise, but not bad at all. And then as the net went on, and it went on and on and on, my goodness, he must have had 30 people that he checked in from this list. And then at the end, he asked, and then the band was kind of deteriorating, and he asked if anyone else wanted to check in, and I tried to check in, and it was like a pileup on HF. I'm telling you, everybody was just doubling. And so that went on for a long time, and then after that, Lee started talking to Kingston Bill, and so they were talking. So I gave up, turned the radio off, went back to watching TV, so I never did get checked in. Let me let it drop. in a text message or email or something from somebody, and they claimed their husband was banned from Walmart because he was an old retired guy and he was bored, so he would go over there and do all these things. He'd put things in people's cart. He would, I can't even remember all of them, but there's a whole list of things he did. But the thing that finally got him barred from Walmart is he went into the dressing room and then he hollered out to the ladies, "Hey, there's no toilet paper in here." One of the ladies, I guess, fainted. So the manager said they just couldn't take it anymore. They put it with this guy for about 6 months and he was driving them nuts. So he was banned. He couldn't come into the Walmart store anymore. But that struck me as being funny. So anyway, back to net, KD7QKU.
KD7QKU. Let's go on to Jessica, KF7UHK.
That's funny. I can't tell you some of the stories I've already got from people I've dealt with on these buses. I can't tell them right here on the radio, but I will tell you that when I was in training, I kept on saying, what we need here during training is a big bottle of oxygen. Sometimes we just need to take a big huff of oxygen just to make yourself feel a little bit better, kind of wake your brain up a little bit, because there's so much information they give you in a short amount of time. But now, since I've been driving buses, I think what they need is a counselor. Whenever you're done with your shift, you should be able to sit down with a counselor and just kind of let it all out of all the stuff you saw all day, because it's less of a job about driving and more of a job about dealing with people. KF7, you check.
Thanks for that, Jessica. Let's go on down to Richard, K7ITX.
I think Bert might got skipped, but that's okay. Or maybe it's my turn. But it's only a couple minutes left anyway. I think I might not have anything to say, because whatever I was going to say is gone through one ear and out the other. So I'll just say K7ITX, back to net control.
Let's go to N7CS, Bert, to finish off the net.
Time is short, so let's see. That Starlink launch that just happened reminded me of something. There was an announcement that Starlink and T-Mobile made earlier this week, and they said that in the future, these satellites will actually be able to talk to cell phones, regular cell phones that exist now, not new cell phones, so that there won't be any more dead zones in the United States because of this partnership they're doing. Apparently, these new satellites are going to have a 25-foot antenna that can expand out or whatever, so it'll be able to talk to all the regular cell phones that are out there now, at least on that one network. Anyway, time is approaching, so 73 all. This is Bert in Marysville, and 7CS, back to that.
CS, Bert, thanks with that. And this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society net on the 08 machine. I'm Dave, KD7CYM. We'd like to thank CTAC Repeater Association for allowing us to use WW7STR's repeater, known as the 08 machine, 147.08, with a tone of 103.5 for our audio transmissions for our video nets held on Wednesdays and Saturdays between 8 and 9 o'clock. So on behalf of the Western Washington Amateur Television Society, this is Dave, KD7CYM, signing off the net. Good evening all at 9 o'clock.